"You don't belong here, Grandma." That's what the young receptionist actually said to me. No nice words this time. On the morning I stood at the copy machine on the 14th floor. I was holding a stack of papers. She tapped my shoulder and said that machine was only for staff. I told her I was staff. She looked at my badge, then back at my face like the two things didn't match. "Reception said you were here for the file clerk job, Grandma," she said. "That copier is only for department heads." My name is Eleanor Whitfield. I am 68 years old. That morning I walked into Sallow and Cross Consulting Group, and to almost everyone there I looked like I had walked in from the wrong time. I didn't argue with her. I just picked up my folder and walked to the small desk they gave me, squeezed between a closet and a printer that jammed every few pages. Around me the office moved fast. People wore headsets. They walked around with laptops talking about goals and plans like it was a race. A young man named Tyler from onboarding gave me a laptop that still had someone else's sticky notes on it. He said HR would set up my paperwork by the end of the week if I planned to stay that long. He said it nicely, but I could hear the real question under his words. Nobody looked twice at the badge clipped to my jacket. It said Special Advisor in small letters under my name. Nobody at the front desk had typed that in. It was pulled from an old file that already existed. I didn't explain it. I sat down, opened my laptop, and behind me near the coffee machine, I heard a woman whisper to another coworker, not quiet enough. "How did she even get hired here?" she asked. Nobody answered her. I didn't turn around. I let the whisper go. There was no reason to turn and answer a question that wasn't really meant for me. I opened my laptop and within the hour, an invite popped up for the Monday meeting, the one every department head went to. Tyler had added me at the last minute with a short note, "Thought you should sit in." The meeting room smelled like coffee. I sat near the back. A few minutes later Derek Sallow walked in, phone in hand, tie loose just enough to look relaxed. He was the kind of man who filled a room before he even said a word. When he saw me sitting at the table, not standing by the wall like the assistants, something changed on his face. Not anger exactly. More like confusion looking for somewhere to land. "I think there's been a mix-up," he said, looking at Tyler. "This is for department leads, Eleanor." Nobody said anything. A woman named Rachel Dawson, who ran client accounts, kept her eyes on her screen. I told him it was fine, I would just sit quietly and watch. He let me stay, but I could tell it bothered him. 10 minutes in, he said the company needed people who understood modern business, not he paused just enough for everyone to notice old ways of thinking. A few young workers laughed, the kind of laugh people give when they're relieved it isn't about them. I said nothing. I opened the small notebook I always carried and I wrote something down. Nobody asked what. After the meeting, Derek's assistant asked me to pick up the food order for Thursday's client dinner and set up the meeting room. I said that was fine. She looked a little sorry handing it to me, like she knew it wasn't really my job, whatever my job actually was. By Wednesday, I was also asked to refile 3 years of paperwork and restock supplies because the intern was out sick. I did both without complaining. There is a kind of patience you learn after proving yourself in far harder places than this one, where the stakes were never just a filing cabinet. Derek walked past my desk Thursday and said, not unkindly, "You're a good sport about all this. Most people your age would have quit by now." I told him I had been called worse things by better people. He laughed, not fully sure if it was a joke. That evening, after most people left, I stayed to finish the filing. I opened my notebook under the desk lamp. Next to a short list of names and dates from Monday's meeting, I wrote one more line. Small. Simple. It meant nothing to anyone who might glance at it. It meant everything to me. I closed the notebook before Tyler walked by to say goodnight, and put it in the bottom drawer of my desk, the one that locked. That notebook stayed locked for almost 3 weeks. I nearly forgot the line I wrote that night, until Thursday morning, when Tyler sent an invite titled Company Town Hall, all staff required. The main floor was set up with rows of chairs facing a big screen, the kind of setup usually used for holiday parties, not this. I sat near the back, close to the door out of habit. Derek stood at the front in a clean suit, clicking through slides while 200 people settled into their seats with coffee cups. He started with numbers, growth, clients, the usual stuff. Then the slide changed to one titled Organizational Changes, and I felt the room shift the way a room shifts right before someone's name gets said out loud. As we grow, Derek said, his eyes landing on me in the back row, we also need to be honest about roles that belong to where this company used to be, not where it's going. He smiled, the kind of smile made for a camera. Some of you know Eleanor here are, he paused, old guard. A few people laughed in the front rows, the kind of laugh people give when they think it's already been allowed. I sat still, hands folded, and said nothing. But I noticed Rachel staring hard at her shoes. Derek clicked to the next slide. A chart labeled budget changes. One line near the bottom read special advisor role under review. He said it plainly, like reading a grocery list. Honestly, he added, like it was nothing, I'm not even sure why that title exists. HR said her badge access is unusually high. Probably some old computer mistake. We'll fix that too. He said it so easily, so sure that no one would question it, that even I had to admire how confidence can stand in for truth. Nobody laughed at that part. A few people looked at each other, unsure if it was still a joke. I felt something settle in my chest. Not embarrassment. Something colder and steadier. I thought about the notebook in my locked drawer. About the date I had written weeks ago. About how long a real computer mistake actually takes to fix, if it was a mistake at all. Derek moved to the next slide, talking about timelines, his voice calm, like a man who never once thought the ground under him could shake. That's when a side door near the stage opened quietly. A man I had never seen before stepped in, dressed sharper than anyone in the room, a leather folder under his arm. He didn't sit down. He stood by the wall, arms crossed, watching Derek's slides like he wasn't there for the coffee and donuts. Rachel leaned toward the woman next to her and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. That's legal and compliant, she said. Why is he here? Nobody answered her. Derek hadn't even noticed him yet. Nobody answered Rachel, and Derek kept talking, not noticing anything had changed in the room. I slipped out during the break that followed. I walked to the hallway near the old elevators, and stood in front of an old photo that had hung there longer than most staff had been alive. A black and white photo of the building's old lobby, with the company's old name under it. A young intern named Casey, filling up the coffee station nearby, noticed me looking and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just remembering things. I used to work in this building before it had this name, I said, mostly to myself. Different owners back then. Even the records room downstairs still opens with the same combination it did 30 years ago, if you can believe that. Casey laughed politely, the kind of laugh you give when you think someone old is just telling harmless old stories. She said that was sweet and went back to making coffee. I smiled a little, looked once more at the photo, and walked back to the town hall room without saying another word. The town hall ended not long after I sat back down. I thought the strange feeling in the room would just fade by the end of the day. It didn't. Around 4 that afternoon, Tyler came to my desk and asked, almost nervously, if I could step into the small meeting room near HR. Derek was already inside, along with a woman from HR I recognized but had never spoken to, a folder open in front of her. Derek didn't waste time. Eleanor, he said, we've decided to go a different way with the special advisor role. This is a mutual decision starting today. I sat down slowly, folded my hands, and asked him what exactly had been mutual about it, since nobody had asked for my opinion. He smiled, the same smile from the stage. Look, he said, we just think someone at your stage of life might be happier with something less demanding. No hard feelings. The HR woman shifted in her seat, looking down at the folder, and I noticed her pen had stopped moving. I asked if this had gone through proper review since this state allowed at-will jobs, but age discrimination was still against federal law, no matter what any memo called it. Derek's smile dropped for half a second before he put it back on. That's not what this is, he said, a little too fast. Word must have moved quickly, because by the time I walked back to the main floor, security was already waiting near my desk. A young man named Marcus, who looked more uncomfortable about this than I felt. People at nearby desks had gone quiet, watching without pretending not to. I didn't argue with Marcus. I picked up the small box someone had already packed for me, took off my badge and set it down gently in front of Derek, who had followed us out to make sure everyone saw this moment. I think you'll want to reconsider this, I said quietly, not as a threat, just as a simple fact like mentioning rain was coming. Derek just smiled wider, looking around the floor like he was checking that his little show had landed well. Sure thing, Eleanor, he said. Take care of yourself. I walked to the elevator with Marcus behind me. The whole floor stayed silent, except for the quiet hum of laptops nobody was using. Behind me, Derek stood smiling, arms crossed, sure the matter was closed. He had no idea how wrong he was. And it only took 4 days for him to find out. I was at home going through my mail when Marcus called my personal phone. He told me quietly that an emergency staff meeting had been called for that afternoon. About the merger talks everyone had been whispering about for weeks. He said it almost like a warning, though he didn't say why. I wasn't there myself, but I heard about it later from 3 different people, and each story matched. The whole staff had been called back to the main floor. This time it wasn't Derek at the front. It was the chairman of the board, a man named Walter Griggs, who almost never came down to that floor. He started by talking about the merger, then paused and said there was a matter of company rules that needed to be cleared up first. According to the company's original founding papers, he said, any big change like a merger needs approval from the majority owner. He clicked to the next slide and the room went silent. The screen showed who owned the company, and at the very top, holding 51%, was a name most people only knew as the old woman who filed papers and fetched coffee 3 floors up. Eleanor Whitfield, Griggs said, got her shares from her late husband, the man who started this company. She has owned most of this company the entire time she worked here. Rachel later told me Derek's face turned white as the wall behind him. Griggs wasn't done. Legal counsel, sitting near the front, stood up to confirm that Eleanor's firing the week before had skipped every proper review step, and that several comments made in the town hall and firing meeting were serious problems under federal age discrimination law. The room, Rachel said, had never been that quiet in the 2 years she worked there. Griggs closed his folder and looked at the staff, still trying to understand what they had just heard. There is one more thing, he said, before we continue, about Ms. Whitfield's place in this company. There is one more thing, Griggs had said. And that thing walked through the front doors 20 minutes later, wearing not the soft sweater people were used to seeing, but a sharp suit, with 2 lawyers walking beside her like guards nobody expected. I heard later that the room didn't just go quiet, it stood up. Not all at once, but slowly, chair by chair, as people realized who was walking past them, and what it now meant. Rachel told me she stood up before she even decided to, like her body understood before her brain did. Griggs met me near the front and gave me the floor without another word. I didn't raise my voice. I never needed to. For the last 4 months, I said, I have been reviewing this company's management for the board, after complaints from 2 people who had left before me. I didn't take the special advisor title to hide. I took it because people talk more honestly around someone they've already decided doesn't matter. I let that sit for a moment before I continued. Every comment made about my age, my job, and my ability over these past weeks has been written down, along with what happened to 2 other workers whose complaints were ignored before they ever reached this board. What happened to me wasn't one bad moment. It was a pattern. And now there is proof. Near the side, I saw Derek go completely still, one hand gripping the back of a chair like it might hold him up. Starting now, Griggs said, stepping forward. Derek Sallow is on leave while outside lawyers investigate, and while the company works with federal officials on an age discrimination case. Nobody laughed this time. Nobody whispered. Marcus, the same guard who had walked me out the week before, stood near the back watching Derek the way you watch a storm rolling in. Derek opened his mouth once, reaching for the same confidence that had carried him through every room before this one, and found nothing there to use. His assistant appeared at the edge of the crowd, her face blank, and told him quietly that HR needed to see him upstairs. Now. Understand. That badge never came back down to the 14th floor, not on Derek. Within a week, a message went out to the whole company by email, admitting there had been real problems in leadership, and announcing a new training program on respect and age discrimination, built with outside lawyers and HR. Griggs asked me to look over the message before it went out. I told him honesty mattered more than nice words, and we removed a part that called everything unfortunate, replacing it with something closer to the truth, that real harm had happened, and the company would fix it directly, not quietly. Derek's firing came 3 weeks later, after the investigation ended. I wasn't in that meeting and I didn't ask to be. The lawyers only confirmed that a deal had been reached, and the details would stay private, like most deals like that. I didn't need to know more. His desk sat empty for days. Chair pushed in neatly. Nameplate already gone. The kind of emptiness that says more than any announcement could. People walk past it differently than they used to walk past mine. Griggs came to my office the next Monday, the same small desk I used to have near the supply closet, though by then it had been moved to a real office down the hall, my name spelled right on the door this time. He asked if I would lead a new culture and ethics committee, one with real power to review complaints before they got as bad as mine had. I said yes on one condition. Every worker, no matter their title or how long they'd been there, needed a safe, private way to speak up without fear. He agreed right away. That afternoon, Rachel knocked softly on my open door, looking over her shoulder before stepping in. She didn't sit down right away. I should have said something, she said quietly. That day and after. I heard what was being said, and I stayed quiet. I told her I understood. Staying quiet is something almost everyone learns to do to protect themselves, I said. Doesn't make it right, but it does make it human. Rachel left my office that afternoon looking lighter than when she came in. I found myself thinking about her apology longer than I expected, not because it changed anything, but because it meant something had really shifted in a place that used to reward silence. A few months later, the company held a small get-together on the main floor. Coffee and snacks were set out near the same front desk where a receptionist once corrected me for using the wrong copier. I was asked to say a few words and I kept them short the way I keep most things. I told the room that respect isn't something you give based on someone's age, their title, or how loud they are in a meeting. I said the newest person in the room and the person who has been there the longest both deserve to be heard the same way. And the moment a company forgets that, it starts losing things far more important than a lawsuit or a headline. Casey stood near the back, no longer filling coffee pots, but wearing a badge that said Associate Culture Analyst, a role she had grown into through the new mentorship program. She caught my eye and smiled, the kind of smile that remembered exactly which small hallway talk had started all of this. I raised my coffee cup instead of giving a toast, and the room raised theirs back, easy laughter now filling the same space that used to hold careful silence. Walking back to my office, I thought about how little all of this had really needed from me besides patience. Real power rarely needs to introduce itself loudly. It simply waits for the right moment to be seen clearly, and it is never in a hurry. If someone in your own life was ever underestimated the way I was, someone quiet, someone easy to overlook, tell me about them in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this one, stay close. There is always another one waiting to be told.